Right. Good evening. Mazel tov again on reaching this remarkable milestone. 5 years is 1,825 nights, and an equal number of blot. Is it? I multiplied. What?
And we're blocked behind.
And we're
I
blot
kept
behind.
trying to figure the numbers. I couldn't get it.
You're making too many cheshbonos. You're making.
5 nights though.
Don't rain on the parade. Don't. You're all missing. You're all missing the point. You've lost the forest because of the trees here. Mazel tov on the major accomplishment of learning most of Shas. How did we do? Okay, we are today starting a new parak. This is not the time to take like a dip in our learning. Let's here we go. So we're starting a new parak, Baruch Hashem. We finished the first parak of Dinei Mamanis B'Shlosha, and today we're going to be starting a new parak, and we really are far behind. I did plan to learn 2 blot, including the Zaftig blot on Yud Tes. I'm going to move pretty quickly. The Gemara is not difficult. It really isn't difficult, so we're really going to try and cover a lot of ground, starting at the new parak on Yud Ches Amud Aleph. Here we go. Kohen Gadol, when we talk about the high priest, Dan v'danin oso, he can be a dayan, and he can also be a defendant / plaintiff. He can be a baldin, meid u'meidin. He can be testified upon, and he can testify. U'meidin oso, it could be testimonies about him. Cholitz v'choltzan li'ishto, chalitza can happen if he has a brother and his brother dies, and then he can do chalitza with his brother's wife, and vice versa. Umiyabim est ishto, and his brother, the Kohen Gadol's brother, can be miyabim his wife. Aval hu eno miyabim. The Kohen Gadol can't do that. Mipnei shu aser be'almana, because he has an isur doraisa. Kohen Gadol has an isur doraisa to marry an almana, and by definition, if there's a yibum opportunity, that means that she was married to his brother and he died, which makes her an almana, and therefore it's an isur doraisa for them to marry. So he can only do chalitza. Meis lo meis, if a Kohen Gadol lost a family member, eno yotze achar hamita, the Kohen Gadol is not really supposed to go after the mace. Elahein nichnasin v'hu nigle. The way that it works is they will make one turn so that they're no longer visible, and then he can then turn that corner. So Ke'ilah, you're going down Chase, he stays by the shul, and if they turn down California, then he can go up to the corner of California. He'll look down. When they turn on to Tui, then he can walk up to Tui. That's how it works. Hey niglin v'hu nichse, same exact idea. Reb Meir says that the Kohen Gadol, with the mace of his family member, that the Kohen Gadol can only walk up to the entrance of the city. Rabbi Yehuda Omer eno yotze min hamikdash. He's not allowed to go anywhere. He's not malav in the mace at all. He doesn't go to the cemetery whatsoever. He should not be leaving the base hamikdash. We'll see some more parameters about this a little bit later. When he is going to do nichum avelim, says the Gemara, derech kol ha'am ovrim b'zeh achar zeh. In general, one person passes by another. There's a mamuna. This person is like the skan Kohen Gadol, so that if the Kohen Gadol were to become tamei or whatever the case may be, then the skan Kohen Gadol would kind of like replace him, and he would function as a buffer. The mamuna would be mimatzo beino levein ha'am, would stand between him and between the people. When the Kohen Gadol is the one receiving nichum avelim, so he's an avelus, he's sitting shiva. Kol ham omrim lo. They say to the Kohen Gadol, anu kaparascha, we are your kapar. V'hu omer lehen, tisbaruchu min hashamayim. It's not our language. The language that we have of hamakom minachem eschem is not found in Shas, to the best of my knowledge. I don't believe it's found there at all. There's no chiyuv to say anything when you go to a person's house. We do train our kids to do that, and we do it ourselves. It's the right thing to do, at least socially. But to say that it's a requirement halachically is very difficult. And I've shared this story before. When Chanukh Teller was sitting shiva, one of the greats walked in. I think it was, I'm pretty sure it was Rabbi Yashiv. Oh. He sat there. He didn't say a word. He sat there for 10 minutes and he got up and he walked out. He never said Hamalka Menachem. Hamalka Menachem is not found in the Gemara, and this is only a din by Kohen Gadol, the Anu Kaparascha, and then he says back then Tisbaruchu Min Hashamayim. Okay. Uchshemavrin also by the Sudas Havra, which is the meal after the burial. So then, Kol ha'am mesuben ala haaretz v'hu meisav ala safsal. He sits on the bench. Now, normally, the Avel is the one who's sitting lower than the people, but not when you are the Kohen Gadol. All this first half of the Mishnah is Kohen Gadol. Let's switch to the Melech. The Melech has a totally different set of rules. HaMelech lo dan v'lo dan no so. He cannot be a dain and he can't be judged. He can't be a baldin. Lo meid v'lo meid no so. He can't give testimony, and testimony can't be given about him. Lo cholitz v'lo choltzen li'ishto. He doesn't do chalitza on his brother's wife, and his brother doesn't do chalitza on his wife if he dies. Lo miyabim v'lo miyabim li'ishto. There's no yibum either. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, he said, there's nothing wrong with the Melech doing Yibum. What's the big deal? Let him do the mitzvah. Said back to Rabbi Yehuda, no, in Shoman we do not allow that. And here is a very sharp halacha. Ve'ein nosin almanaso. No one can marry the almana of a melech. So if he marries and he dies, she can never remarry. However, Yehuda Omer, it's not really fully true. No se hamelech almanaso shel melech. He can marry. She could be married to another king. She just can't marry a stam balabas. Shekain matzin b'David shenasa almanaso shel Shaul. That David married the almana of Shaul. We'll see. This is not so pashut. Shenamar v'etna lecha is beis adonecha v'esnashei adonecha b'cheikecha, and that we see that David was able to marry family of Shaul. Gemara says the halachos are divergent in every way. There's nothing similar actually between the two of them. Everything was different. Eidos and Dayanos and everything was different.
How could he marry the man of Shaul if he married the daughter?
The Gemara is going to discuss that. That's actually what happened. We're not even so sure what happened over there. The Gemara is very convoluted actually. We'll discuss today, Mir Tashem, if we get there. I don't want to go past 10, so we got to move. Says the guy, yeah. Deep breath. Shavuos tonight. Kohen Gadol done. We had said in our mission that a Kohen Gadol can be a Dayan. Says the Gemara Pshita. What's the big deal? Says the Gemara, you're right. Of course, it's pasha that a Kohen Gadol can be a Dayan. He's a big Talmid Chacham. The reason why we had it is done in Oso Itzricha. We needed it to know that he could be a Baldin and people could the Dayanim can say things against him, right? He can be a Baldin. Says the Gemara, Hanami Pshita. Ilo Dainin Lalei. Ihu Hechi Dayan. We have a general rule. In order for you to be a Dayan, you also have to be at least in capacity to be a Baldin. It's not a one-way ticket. If you're able to be a dayan, you have to be able to be a baldin. And Vaksiv, and I know, says the Gemara, that he's able to be both because he's kosher shuva kosher. We've actually seen this drasha a number of times. If you look on the side here, it says it's here. It's in Baba Basra and it's in Baba Metzia. What does this pasuk mean? Decorate yourself and afterwards decorate others. This is actually just a homily, just to basically say, if you can be one, you have to be the other. In order to be one, you have to be the other. If you're going to be a dayan, you also have to be able to be a baldin. Therefore, we know that it's pashut that a Kohen Gadol can be done and he can be a baldin. So says the Gemara, therefore, what's the chiddush of saying the case of Kohen Gadol at all by done and oso? Should be pashut. Says the Gemara, 6 lines from the bottom. Lo dan v'lo dan and oso. Really, there is no chiddush by Kohen Gadol. The whole chiddush was by a melech, that the fact is that a melech can't be a dayan and he can lo dan and oso. So Tananami Kohen Gadol dan v'dan, even though there's no chiddush over there. So really, when the Mishnah says the first line of this Mishnah in the parak called Kohen Gadol dan v'dan and oso, that line qualifies as a pshita, and there's no chidushim whatsoever. It's only there because the second part of the Mishnah speaks about a melech, and by a melech there is a chiddush that he's not done, and we're not done in oso. Levi same another possibility as to the chiddush of what's going on with the Kohen Gadol is a very unique case. Says the Gemara, Levi same hakamashmalan kidatanya. We have a brayso Kohen Gadol shahara gasanefesh. God forbid a Kohen Gadol were to kill someone by kill someone. B'meizid ne'erag. If he kills someone on purpose, he gets killed. B'shogeg gola. If he kills someone by accident, he gets to go into, or he has to go into a city of refuge and into an ir miklat. And the over al aseh ve'al los aseh. And he also, seemingly the language is weird. He also has to violate an aseh and a los aseh. We're gonna have to figure out what that language means because it's super weird. And now he is like a hedjot, meaning we don't treat him like a Kohen Gadol anymore. We'll see what all of this means. The Gemara says, wait 1 second. B'meizid ne'erag pshita. Of course, he's a murderer. If the Kohen Gadol, all of a sudden he turns his white cloth robes and he takes out a pickaxe and kills, he's a murderer. Of course he's going to be killed. Says Gemara, well, the reason why there was a chiddush was because b'shogeg gola itzrichale. The reason why is to teach us that the Kohen Gadol goes to an ir miklat. Says the Gemara, hanami pshita. That should also be obvious that the Kohen Gadol goes into an ir miklat. And the Gemara says, no, it's not so pashut that a Kohen go into an ir miklat, because what's one of the dinim of an ir miklat? When does a person who kills b'shogeg get out of an ir miklat? What happens? When the Kohen Gadol dies. But if you are the Kohen Gadol, so it says the Gemara, hanami pshita itzrich sal kedai techamina hod l'kasav yasha ba'ad most Kohen Gadol. That a person who killed b'shogeg, they have to be there till the Kohen Gadol dies. Ema called the isay takanta b'chazar. Legally, only people who can actually be fixed, who can actually get out of this ir miklat, they're the ones who go in. But the lesay takanta, the Kohen Gadol, who has no way to get b'chazar to get out, lo legally, perhaps he should not be gola into the ir miklat because he has no way of ever getting out. His own death, his agufa, it's his own death. Kasha, won't there be another Kohen Gadol while he's in the ir miklat? The Gemara doesn't discuss that case.
All the people there also.
They're going to try and kill him. Absolutely. Well, accidentally. The Gemara wasn't concerned about them murdering directly, but that the mothers of the people who were in there would daven that the Kohen Gadol should die. It was less like, like the prison yard riot, where like they kind of is different. I mean, I hope it's different. Yeah, with special treats inside, like razors. I know where you were going. Yeah. It's not, says the Mishnah. All right, we finished our first Amud of the day. Let's keep going. Ahori Kohen Gadol. Oh, Kohen Gadol Shahar, I guess, on Nefesh. Eno Yotze Misham La'olam. He's never allowed to leave. That's talk of the case. So therefore, Ema Lo Ligli. Perhaps we should therefore say that because he's not able to ever get out, by definition, when he goes into the Ir Miklat, he's never allowed to leave again because his own death would have been the Ptur and he's going to die. So therefore, Ema Lo Ligli. We would have thought perhaps that the Kohen Gadol is Nigla. Kamash Malan. That's what the Gemara means when it tells us the Chiddush of the beginning of the Mishnah, where it says Kohen Gadol done v'done and also. It's not about done v'done and also. It just means that he goes into an Ir Miklat. Says the Gemara, Gival de Kasha Ve'im Hachanami. Maybe we should say that he doesn't go in. Why are you saying that he has to go in? Says the Gemara, Shteit and Chumash. We don't have a choice. But really, al svara, there is a real svara there to say the Kohen Gadol should not go in because there's no way for him to get out except for his own demise, which is a catch-22. So maybe we would have said it's a preclusion. Kamash Malan, but that's not the case. 2 dots, 4 lines down. Yud Chesed Beis says the Gemara. We had this weird language in the Brisa at the bottom of Yud Chesed Aleph of over al asay al los asay lo sagid lo avar. What do you mean? He has to violate halacha? What are we talking about over here? Says the Gemara. We've totally misunderstood it. It's very cryptic language. Says the Gemara. Hachi ka'amar im avar al asay al los asay. If in fact a Kohen Gadol makes the mistake of doing an asay and a los asay, so he skips tefillin one day and then he doesn't. He speaks lashon hara. Hareu kehedjud l'chol dvarav. He's no longer begeder Kohen Gadol. Woo! This is a standard. This is top shelf. We're not talking about guys who are slackers here at all. These people did not do averas. If you did a bittul asay, I saw someone in shul this week doing a bittul asay. So simple. His talis, one of the strings was torn, and the string that loops around the beged, one of them was torn. Now, I didn't know this person. I went over to Rabbi Robinson and I said, do you know this person? He's being mevatel mitzvah saseh. He's wearing a 4-cornered garment. One of the corners is not kosher. That's an isra aseh. You're not allowed to do that. It's usher. So, it's an isra aseh. It's a bittul aseh. So that means if the Kohen Gadol does that, he's no longer a Kohen Gadol anymore. He's not judged with 71. He's judged with 3 now. That's what the Gemara is saying over here. Hareu kehedja l'chol dvarav. Says the Gemara, yeah. No, Pshita, we know that a Kohen Gadol that does not Beira, of course, he drops down to regular status. Says the Gemara, well, it's not because the Mishnah says, Ein done in Loas HaShevet, Loas HaNavi Sheker, Loas HaKohen Gadol al Pi Bezdin Shal Shivim Ve'echad. Because we already learned it in that Kohen Gadol is always judged by 71. The Omer Vad Bar Abba, Kol HaDavar HaGadol, Yaviu Elecha. We would have said Dvarav Shel Gadol. Anything that the Kohen Gadol does, Ema called Dvarav Shel Gadol, which is 71, Kamash Malan. Even in this case, he would be 71, even if he doesn't have Beira. Says the Gemara, no, that's not correct. Kamash Malan, that he is out. He does these averis. He's no longer Kohen Gadol status anymore. He doesn't get 71. He's a regular Yid, 3, a regular Bezin. It's an unbelievable Musar.
71 capital case for a Kohen Gadol?
We're going to see that in Mamish, the next 2 lines. Yeah, he's still, if he kills, of course. But we're talking about, had he been in the right status, his regular Mamonis case would have been with 71. That's true. But with his Avera, those Mamonis cases are now 3. You're regular Joe now. Nothing changes. As the Gemara kind of asks your question in another way. Maybe we should say that it should still be 71. Says the Gemara, Miksiv Divrei Gadol. It's Hadavar Hagadol Ksiv. Davar Gadol Mamish. And Davar Gadol Mamish means that when you do something, Davar Gadol, when you kill, okay, then you need to have a bigger bezdin because you're a murderer. But the regular things, when you're a Kohen Gadol who does Averas, you're out. Then you don't have again, murder capital cases, of course, 23, 71, whatever the case may be. So says the Gemara. And again, just a big muster for all of us that we're not Kohanim Gedolim. We're barely Kohanim with the exception of one guy in the room. So the Gemara says that if a person does even one Avera from the Kohen Gadol, his status is dropped. That's what it seems from the Gemara.
How can you become a Kohen Gadol back?
I don't know if he can. I don't know. He probably could do tshuva. I don't know. Made Eden also. We had talked about in our Mishnah that the Kohen Gadol can be made. It says the Gemara, he can be made? Why should he be able to be made? After all, Tanya, we learned about this also in Bava Metzia and in Brachos. The Gemara says, "V'his alamto." This is talking about the mitzvah of Hashavas Aveda. There are times that you have the mitzvah to do Hashavas Aveda, and there are times that you don't. Okay, so what's the case? Kohen shu b'vei. What do you want him to do? The Kohen should not violate an Isser D'Oraisa to go get your item that you left in a cemetery. Zakein ve'ena lefich vodo. You got I don't know who pick a zakein. You got to pick an old chashav Talmud Chacham. And you left your cell phone in the middle of the street. That's not. He doesn't have to go. He's got a cane. Izzy Star. He's gonna go. Don't lose your phone. He has no chiyuv to return it to you, right? He's a chashav older gentleman, right? My hourly rate is significant enough that it costs more than your item, or potentially more than you make, and therefore it's meruba mishal chavero. The kachnem Rabbi Salamta. We have scenarios where it's pasnished. You don't have to. So the Kohen Gadol is going to go and be made on somebody. He's a regular Joe. No, it's pasnished. It should be in the same category. Rabbi Salamta says the Gemara. Amar Rabbi Yosef. You're right. You're 100% right. The Kohen Gadol is not made on me and you. Who is he made on? Lemelech. Kohen Gadol is never going to be made on a regular guy. What are you? What are you doing? You're like the top of the food chain. You're the best Kohen of all the Kohanim. We're already another tier. They lived in Big Kedusha. We learned about this in Maseches Tamid. They lived in the Lishka. They were so careful. They had they had. And they had these because of the wine that was nikrash, and they had the mikvahs under the underbelly of the mikdash. These people were so special. We can't even tell. We can't even under. And then the top guy was going Gadol. He's not coming to Bezdin for me. That's pasnish. He's not. You're right. It's only for a melech. How can you say that? We said about a melech lo dun v'lo dun no so lo made lo either no so. A Kohen Gadol can't be made on a melech. No one's made on a melech. He has privilege. What is it called? Immunity. He's safe. He's good to go. It says the Gemara. They should have quoted this one in the courts. It would have gone a long way. That's not allowed. Ella says the Gemara. You're right. Amar Reb Zera. Who's the Kohen Gadol being made on? Leben Melech. He's not talking about the Melech. The Melech has nobody testifying about him. Good to go. But he's talking about the son. But why? The Ben Melech is a head Yodu. Asks the Gemara. The Ben Melech he's me and you. Oh, guy, you got daddy's purse. Congratulations. You're still a regular guy. So it says the Gemara. Ella, you're right. He's made Bifnei Melech. He's giving testimony before Melech. Sanhedrin. You're not allowed to have Melech come sit in Sanhedrin. He can't even be there. Very hard to ignore the king when he's sitting in the room. Says the Gemara, it's Mishum Yikra the Kohen Gadol. He's there to show kavod to the Kohen Gadol. What is the case? So Asav Yasiv, he showed up. The Melech showed up to show kavod. Mekabli nehalei l'sahaduse. The king sat there while the Kohen Gadol gave some testimony. Then the king would leave. Then the Bezin would then internally figure out what was going on. Very, very specific case. That's what the Gemara says as to why the Kohen Gadol is being made. It's not on me. It's on a Ben Melech. We can't because the president's a goy, but the concept, conceptually, there's no real comparison. Yeah, but there's no real comparison because that's not modeled on anything that's real. All of that is sheker b'chazah. The whole thing is games. 2/3 of the way down, let's go. Gufa. We said ein moshiv melech b'Sanhedrin v'lo melech b'Kohen Gadol b'ibor shana. A melech is not allowed to even sit in the bezdin, and a melech and a Kohen Gadol cannot be involved in ibor shana. Why not? Because they're going to have skewed perspectives. Melech b'Sanhedrin d'chsiv lo saneh al riv. Lo saneh al riv has a drasha. Lo saneh al rav. No one's going to speak while he's in the room, which is taka true. You're going to pipe up in front of the melech. Let's just remember the melech was like David HaMelech, right? We're not talking about some guy who got voted in. These people are unbelievable. And lo melech v'kohen gadol b'ibor shana. Why can't they be involved in the ibor yor? Says the Gemara, melech mishum afsanya. The melech because he pays the soldiers annually. And if he were to chap a Rhine and get an ibor yor, he would save money because he'd get a month free on the soldiers. So he pays Tafshin Pehei $1 million. Ha! You're telling me ibor yor? I just saved.
I didn't know on the side. It's the opposite.
No.
The X is our annual pay is monthly. The extra month sometimes. I haven't known. You have this note on the side?
No. Pirush. ונוטל המס בשנה ומפזר להן בכל חודש. ואם יוסיפו חודש, צריך ליתן משלו.
Never wants that whole leap year.
Why did I think it was the other way?
It says the opposite.
Says what I said?
Yeah, he pays his army annually, therefore he'll save money.
Yeah, that was how. I understood that, but Pashtas,
Not saving any money, he's just saving time.
No,
he's saving money
What's he saving?
because I pay my soldiers annually, 12 months or 13. But when the year started, it was only 12 months, so I hired you at an hourly rate, and your hourly rate just went down because my bill is not changing.
I think David's happens to make more sense. He's paying annually. It doesn't matter if it's 12.
It's an extra month. It's an extra 30 days of employment. No, you got an extra 30 days of service.
And the next year's gonna be annual, and the next year's gonna be annual, and the next year's gonna be annual. Here.
Very good.
Makes more sense.
You got this guy for 1 month.
Very good.
Think about it, it makes no sense. He's gonna pay annually forever, so it doesn't matter.
The only sad svara to say that it still makes sense is it's still true if you look at it from a day perspective. I got 30 more days of work for free.
Unless the annual rate changes if you know it's 13 months.
It would have had you known that up front.
Right.
The soldiers would never have agreed. It's money not spent.
Interesting.
I hear both sides. Olavidaiti, and I did not see this note until you called it out.
No.
It's I have it on the side in Hagos Vitzionim here.
But theoretically, it balances out anyway over the next 3 years.
Yeah.
Only if you pay annually always. Yeah.
Right.
Which they do.
I think that's part of Ari's point, is that your budget.
Rashi actually says the first way. The Noach law, you call Shabbos Mubaks. Everything should be, since he's paying annually, he gets a free month of labor.
Beautiful. Well done. Thank you for adding that. Yeah, I see that. Yeah. I didn't see it when I was learning it. Okay, next. Kohen Gadol. Why does the Kohen Gadol, why do we consider him to be Nogea B'davar as it relates to the Iber Yor? So it says the Gemara something fascinating. Mishum Tzina. The Kohen Gadol has to jump in the mikvah like 10 times on Yom Kippur. And a month later into the winter, the water is much colder. This is like the Arizal's mikvah, 40-degree water. And we're talking about Yerushalayim. It's actually not 40 degrees. Isn't that awesome? He's not the only mefunak. That's how I feel about going outside when it's 13 degrees. I thought I was being a weakling. Now I have a marmokum to be a weakling. One of my kids asked me, as someone knocked on the door, I was dressed to come to Daf Yomi. My car is on a schedule to be warm. What does that even mean? Of course, obviously. I was wearing this like nasty fur hat because it's freezing out. My daughter almost burst into tears. She's like, please take off your hat. And the Kohen Gadol Mishum Tzina. Amar Rav Papa Shmami no. This part's a little difficult, so let's hold cup. Shmami no Shata Basar Yarcha Azil. It says Rav Papa, one of the things that we see over here is that the year goes by the months. What does this mean? It means that it goes by really the secular months. What did the Kohen Gadol say? If we wait a month, it's going to be colder. It's still going to be Tishrei, right? But what's happening behind the scenes is that the season is a month later, right? But says the Gemara, that's not how Jews typically refer to it. Amy, is this really true that we have the seasons not aligned with the months like the Kohen Gadol did? After all, there were 3 shepherds. The rabbis heard them talking. Chad Amar, Im Bachir V'Lakish, if the early and late harvest, they all sprout at the same time. Early and late means wheat and barley. They have different growth times, and if they all come up at the same time, that means that the ground is warm, and therefore Dain Hu Adar. This is now therefore the month of Adar. We're late. We're in the later month. Being Lab, but if they don't grow at the same time, less than others, it's Shvat. It's the month before. So what do we see? That they have expectations of Adar being warm and Shvat being cold. Masha'en Kain, with the Kohen Gadol, Tishrei 1 was warm and the later Tishrei was cold, right? So therefore it's kind of like playing with the names of the months a little bit. The Chad Amar, the second of the Roe Bakar, the Roe said, the shepherds said, Im Tor B'tzvar B'Teleg Yamus, if the shore, the cow in the morning, in the snow, it will die. Teleg, sheleg, tough and shin, it will die. Uvetiara, betol te'ina yidmuch, and in the afternoon, it will hide in the shade, it'll sleep in the shade of the te'ina tree. And then yishlach b'mishchei, it's so warm out, it starts to get itchy. I don't know what that means, but then he would scratch his back on the bark of the tree. Then Dain Hu Adar, then we know it's Adar. B'im la, but if it doesn't warm up in the afternoon, less than Adar, then it's not the month of Adar. And the third of the shepherds, the Chad Amar im kidum takif lechada yehei, if the eastern wind comes in very strongly, and yipach beloach nafik lekible, and I blow against the wind, and my breath is strong enough to push against the wind, no idea what this means. None. Dain Hu Adar. The Gemara says now we know it's the month of Adar because the eastern wind is not so strong and I'm able to push back on it. B'im lav, what? No. B'im lav, less than Adar. And if not, then obviously it's not Adar, it's a little bit earlier. And says the Gemara, what's weird about this is V'avru Rabbanan la'ahu shata. That year, they made an Iber Yor based on what they heard from the conversations from them. So what do we see? That the months are very much tied to what's going on in the weather. When that Mashenkin, not like Rav Papa said. So the Gemara says, V'tizbara, do you really think that the Chachamim looked at these 3 guys who walk around shepherding?
Possible. I thought they had to decide in Tishrei. We had a whole, come on, about that. That they have to decide if it's going to be Iber earlier on.
No, that's the earliest time they can do it. That's the earliest.
All the way until.
Up until the end of Adar.
Oh.
Yeah, they can do all the way till the end of Adar. We argued about the last day of Adar because in theory that could have been in a different month,
Right.
Nisan already. So we're in the window still. So says the Gemara, but Tizbra, do you really think that that's what actually happened? Rabbanan, Ara Avasa, Samuch, they're going to rely on these three Amaratzim who are walking around and my cow was cold in the morning and warm in the afternoon. No. El Rabbanan Achush Benayu Samuch, they did all the math that they needed to do, all the cheshbonos that we saw in the previous parak. The Roy Bakar, the rationales of the Roy Bakar, Istau Yehud, Istaya Milsaya, they were considerations, they were factors, but it wasn't the factor. Primarily, it was the math, and primarily it was the moon, and the other things that we saw, but about money and about different cheshbonos, all the other things that we saw. Okay, choletz v'choltzin, we said about the Kohen Gadol, kapasik v'tani, lo shamin erisin v'lo shamin anisun. It doesn't matter when we say that he's allowed to do chalitza, it doesn't matter if she was only betrothed or if they were already married. Now, bishlam amin anisun, if they were already married, I understand the following. Have asay v'lo sa'asay. There he has two things going on. The asay is that he has a mitzvahs asay to marry a besula. It's not a lav for him to marry a beula. He has a mitzvahs asay to marry a beula, and also a los asay that he can't marry an almana. And ve'ein, turning to the top of your Testament, ve'ein asay, the asay of yibum is not going to be doche the los asay ve'asay. The scales are uneven. I have the mitzvah asay of yibum on the one side, but on the other side, for me to marry my brother's wife would be a scenario of yibum, but she's not a besula, which is an isser asay, and she's an almana. So the scales don't. Asay dochelos asay bris milan Shabbos, no problem. That we do all the time. But to say asay against an asay velos asay, that we don't do. So therefore, we understand why, in the case of Nisuin, why he should not be able to do Yibum. But, Elamin ha'erisin amai. Why can't the Kohen Gadol do Yibum for a woman who's only been betrothed? Yavo asay, the mitzvah asay of Yibum should come along. The yidches alos asay. She's never slept with anyone. She's a besula. It's not asay on the one side of Yibum versus asay velos asay on the other. No. It's even Steven. You have the mitzvah saseh of Yibum on the one side, and just the Yisr of an almana. No problem. He should be able to marry her. Why can't he do Yibum for his brother's wife? Great question. Says the Gemara. Amai yavu aseh b'itchelos aseh. Says the Gemara. Look at this unbelievable nuance. Gzeira bia rishona atu bia shnia. Says the Gemara. The mitzvah saseh. The timing of the mitzvah saseh of aseh dochelos aseh of yibum against the isser of almana is the first time they're together. That first bia rishona, no problem. Aseh dochelos aseh. What about the next time they're together? You already performed yibum. Now you're just living with an almana. That's asr. So the bia rishona is allowed, and because you're not allowed to have bia again, the aseh dochelos aseh would matter the first time they're together. Asr every other time they're together, right? This gets into a huge chakira. I want to know if we're on the same page right now, because you're very smart and I'm not very smart. I want to know we're on the same page. It'll make me feel good. Isn't the mitzvah the marriage? No? What wasn't your question? What was your question?
Yeah, I mean, that might be different than any other time. If the mitzvah is only the first time, then how come anytime anybody...
I can't circumcise a child twice. If I do tzitz and shem,
Anybody-
it's the first moment. Aseh dochelos aseh is momentary. What?
The second one's not a problem for a regular.
Yes. The aseh is the fulfillment of yibum. How do you do that? Tashmish amita. And it's against the isser of marrying an almana k'sis kohen gadol. No problem. Tashmish amita number 1. Next week, isser daraisa. She's an almana.
So then you divorce her?
Well, we wouldn't let them get married because it would lead to an immediate divorce. Yeah.
You just do for one night?
No.
Next line.
Tanya, we have a brisa that supports this idea. Tanya namihachi im kadmu uvalu biarishona kanu, the aser lekaiman beviyashnia. We don't allow for this to happen. You're right; it would work. It works. Asay dochelos asay is real. It works. But this scenario is not really it. This gets into alumnus. We're not going to, of course, do this now. But there's a question I was kind of asking before. What does that mean? And I know why I'm wrong. But the svar I wanted to say is, isn't there a mitzvah to get married? This is a big machlokes in the Rishonim. Is there a mitzvah to get married, or is getting married just a heichi timsa to pru or vu? So this is a big deal in the Rishonim. For those who say that it's a mitzvah to get married, it doesn't help in the Yibum case either way, because Maseches Yevamos was filled with this. Yibum is effectuated with Tashmish Amita. That's how the transaction is sealed, is by Tashmish Amita. So I'm wrong, but that's what the Gemara says. Okay, we got to move.
What?
Yeah, it's all online. Yeah.
No, I'm thinking I can separate the different.
No. Mace Lameis, we were talking about the Kohen Gadol when it said Mace Lameis, and we went through the unique patterns of where he's allowed to be, where he's not allowed to be. Says the Gemara Tanur Rabbanan. You're right. He can't walk directly behind the hearse, but he can at a distance. Kate said, how would he do that? This is what our Mishnah said. They turn the corner. He walks up to the corner. He waits till they turn another corner, then he can come around. No problem at all. B'yotzei Pesach, he's allowed to go to the opening of the city where the person's going to be buried. Shapir Kama Rabbi Yehuda. He shouldn't go anywhere. We don't want him to become Tameh. Amar Lach Rameir, Ihachi, the Beis Namilo. If Rabbi Yehuda is right, Mikdash Lo Yetzi, he's not allowed to go anywhere. Why should he ever be allowed to leave the Mikdash to go home? If the pasuk is literal, Mikdash Lo Yetzi, you're stuck. You're Kohen Gadol. You're living in the Makam Mikdash until you die. Why are you allowed to go to your house? Says the Gemara, El Hachi Kamar. That's not pshat in the pasuk. The Mikdash Lo Yetze. What does that mean? Mikdushas Lo Yetze. You can never lose your sanctity. You can never lose your holiness. The Keiman de Islay Hekera Lo Asi Leminga. And since he has a heker, he has this unique way of walking. Nichse, Nigla, this weird way of making sure you never touch it. Lo Asi Leminga. We're not concerned about you touching the mace, which really is our concern because he's a Kohen Gadol. He can't become Tameh mace. So therefore, the Gemara says, don't worry, we have a system in place. Rabbi Yehuda, what's his concern? No, he agrees that Mina Mikdash Lo Yetze doesn't mean literally categorically. He's just saying Agav Mirare because of how bitter his feelings are. He's so sad. Then I could understand. Dilma Mikri V'asi V'naga. He's going to throw himself on the casket, and then he's going to become Tameh Meis. The Machlokes is about emotions. Can the Kohen Gadol hold himself together? According to one of the Rishonim, we have a heker system. Don't worry. He always has to keep a distance. He won't fall on top of the casket. He's not going to come. Rabbi Yehuda says, "I'm sorry. That's not how feelings work. Feelings are not normal. Feelings when you're overwhelmed. You throw yourself on the casket. We've seen these pictures from post October 7th. They're horrible. You can't control your feelings. When you're Kohen Gadol, you have a responsibility." We said Shemenachem when he's giving comfort to other people. Says the Gemara 1/3 of the way down at the two dots. Yud Testament al Tanur Rabbanan Kshu over Beshura Lenachem Esacherim. When the Kohen Gadol is in the line and he's giving comfort to others, he's at a funeral giving. So Skan Umashuach She'avar B'Yamino. The Skan is his assistant who will replace him. Umashuach She'avar. This was a person who was at one point the Kohen Gadol who replaced him. We'll soon see that they're the same person. B'Yamino is on his right. The Rosh Beis Av, who's the head of the Mishmar. Ve'avelim B'chol Ha'am Mismolo. The people who he's giving nichum to, giving nechama to, they're on his left. Ukshu Omid B'Shura Umis Nachem, when he's the Avel and people are giving him nichum avelim me'acherim. Skan mimino v'rosh beis av v'chol ha'am mismolo. His assistant is on his right. The head of the mishmar and everybody else is on the left. Their shura is different. The person he's Kohen Gadol. You can't learn from.
Nobody's walking through it. It doesn't sound like.
We're actually going to get a little bit into that soon, but it's not in between lines like what we have. We have in between lines. Yeah, Kohen Gadol, but for regular people, like when anyone who's ever, or you've done this before. So when you walk through, it's horrible, by the way. When you walk through, there's people flanking you.
Right.
So that's not found in this Gemara. That's not here. This only. But that's because he's a Kohen Gadol. So I don't know what normal. The Gemara is not talking about normal halacha now for the average person. Right. Now, but when the Kohen Gadol is sitting shiva, aval mashuach she'avar lo asi gabe. The guy who filled in his post when he was ill or whatever, that guy's not allowed to come pay a shiva call. My time because chal shadaita is savar kachadibi. He might have thought the Kohen Gadol might feel that the mashuach, who was already the Kohen Gadol for 10 minutes and got his 15 minutes of fame, he might think that that guy's happy that the Kohen Gadol lost a family member. So many emotions. Amar Papa Shmamina Hamas Nisa Tlas. We learned three things from this brisa about the Nichum Avelim. Shmamina Hainu Sgan Hainu Mamuna. As mentioned, these two people are the same one. It's his replacement guy. You know, it's the guy that if the Kohen Gadol becomes tamei, becomes sick, whatever, that is his replacement. They're the same person. Ushmamina Avelim Omdin. The Avelim stand still. V'chol ha'am over him. Everybody walks by them. Not like our shura at all. In fact, where it's the exact opposite. V'shmamina Avelim l'smol ha'menachemen heim omdin. And the mourners, l'smol ha'menachemen, stand to the left of those who mourn, who are giving nichum, I should say. Good. Tanur Rabbanan halfway down. It used to be that the Avelim would stand still and all the people in the community would walk by. But there was a machlokes. Who knew? Sometimes Jews have machlokos. One family, you got the Kleins and the Schwartzes, they disagreed with each other. I'm going to go pay Nichum Avelim first. I'm going to do the Sheva call first. No, I'm going first. Because of that, we reversed it. We said, you guys are being a bunch of babies. Everybody stop. You stand still, the Avelim are going to walk by. Well,
That's what we recognize as the right way to do it.
the Gemara is going to correct it in a second. We'll see a little mnemonic right here, 2/3 of the way down. Chazar v'halach v'siper simon amar Ami bar Abba hichzer Reb Yossi esadar v'liyoshna b'tzipor. He put it back to the way that it should be. Shu avelim omdin v'chalam over. He reversed it back. That really the avelim should stand still and the people should be normal and stop being bali gaiva about who does the shiva call first. So weird. Amar Rabbi bar Abba hiskin Rabbi Yossi b'tzipor shelo isha melechas b'shukuvna achareh mishum ma'isa shahaya. If a woman's walking in the community, you don't allow the child to drag behind. Mishum ma'isa shahaya. The Rishonim here explain. Horrible story. Kidnapped a kid. Then this man said, "Oh, I know where your son is. I saw him." And then they brought her to a private room and they violated her. So therefore, they said you should not have the son walk behind the mother. The son should hold hands, walk in front of the mother, whatever the case may be. That when women would be in an outhouse, they didn't have men's and women's bathrooms. They had one outhouse, and whoever to go to the bathroom had to go. But when the women were there, they would talk. Normally, in Shulchan Aruch state that we're not supposed to be talking in the bathroom. It's a lack of tznius. Person should not be talking at that time. And but when it comes to the prevention of the Isra of Yichud, so then women should talk to each other. So I guess that's carried over. Women talking in the bathroom is pretty normal. Amar Rabbi Nasha bar Ivas Sheili says Rabbi Yoshi Rabba Beves Almin de Hutzal. He was in the cemetery based Almin in Hutzal. Amar Li Ein Shura Pchusim Asar Ben Adam. There need to be at least 10 people in a shura. Ben Avelim Min Aminyan. The people who are mourning do not count as part of the 10. Ben Shavilim Omdin V'Cholam Ovrin. Ben Shavilim Ovrin V'Cholam Omdin. However you have it set up, who's moving? Either the Avelim or the other people, doesn't matter. There need to be 10 Jews who are not the family members. At the 12 lines, just up from the bottom of the page, 3 lines into the middle with lines, when he's giving comfort to others, what did the Kohen Gadol say when he was giving comfort to others? He would say to them, you should have comfort. Asked the Gemara. When other people were giving him comfort, he would respond back to them, you should be comforted. Are you giving them a curse? You're saying he's the one sitting shiva. They said, we feel so bad. He said, Tis Nachama, you should be coming. That's almost like, it's like saying a Makam Menachem back to the crowd. That's not appropriate. Ella, no, you got it wrong. Amar lahu Tis Nechamu. When he would give comfort to others, he would say Tis Nechamu, but he would not say, he wouldn't respond. We don't know what the response would be. Shmami, no, that's what the Gemara says. We said Melech lo dan. Look at this distinction. A king is not allowed to judge or be judged, not allowed to be a dayan. Amar of Yosef Loshana L'Malchi Yisrael. This only applies. Remember, the Jewish people were split by the times of Shlomo, and we had the Malchi Yisrael and the Malchi Yehuda. This halacha only applies to Malchi Yisrael. Aval Malchi Beis David done v'danoso. Totally different set of halachos for the different groups of Jews. So you have one part of Eretz Yisrael that has to keep one set of halachos, and the next part has to keep another set of halachos. Deceive Beis David Kol Marshem Dino Levakir Mishpat. Of course, it has to be that if you can be judged, you also have to be able to judge. As we saw earlier, he's kosher shuva koshu. That if you're going to be what, it's a two-way street. If you're able to be a dayan, you're able to be judged. If you're going to be judged, you have to also be a dayan. What is the reason why Malchei Yisrael, they don't allow the kings to be judged? Because of the following terrible story. So really, it should be that we should allow it, but in Malchei Yisrael, we didn't allow it because the following thing happened. The Yanai Malka katal nafsha. One of the servants of Yanai killed somebody. Amar lu Shem ben Shetach lechachamim tnueinechem bo unidonenu. We are not going to be bashful. I don't care who it was. We're holding this person responsible, even if he's a servant of Yanai Melech. Shalchu le abda katal nafsha. They said to Yanai, one of your employees killed somebody. Shadrei lahu, they sent after him. Shalchu li ta ant nami lahacha. You too, Yanai, not just your eved. I need you in court also. After all, the who bevalav amra Torah yavo bal hashor v'yamad al shora. Go stand over your shore. Go stand over your property. Your eved, whatever his name is, killed somebody. He killed somebody. You're responsible. You have to come to court. Asav Yossi. Yanai comes. He sits in the back of the bezdin. Amar leShimon ben Shetach. Yanai Melech amono rag lecha b'idubach. It's unbelievable. He says to the king, stand up. We have testimony against you. It wasn't really against him. It was against his employee, his short, right? It was against this person. I don't want you to think that you're standing in front of me, Shimon ben Shetach. You're not, Yanai. You're standing in front of Kadosh Baruch Hu. You're standing lifnei Hashem. Those are the next words in the pasuk, which should have been quoted in the Gemara. Omar lo. What did Yanai Melech say? Kshetomar ata, lo kshetomar ata. I don't want to hear from you. Let me hear from the other Dayanim. Turning to the top of your Testament base, we're not going to finish this, but it's just too long. Nifne liyamino, Shimon ben Shetach looked to the guy next to him. He couldn't open his mouth in front of Yanai Melech. He was too overwhelmed, and he said nothing. Nifna Shimon ben Shetach looks to the next guy, the smaller, to the guy on the left. Kav Shimon Bekarka. Amar lam Shimon ben Shetach. Bale machshavos atem. You guys are sitting here having little thoughts in your head about ridiculous things that I'm a king. Do your job. Yavo bal machshavos v'ifra mikem. If you're not going to do your jobs, then the real bal machshavos should do their job. Instantly, miyad ba Gabriel, the chavtan bekarko mesim. Done. They died. The Dayanim who did not pipe up. Ba'osa sha'amru melech lo dan v'lo danan oso lo meid v'lo meidin oso. That's how our Mishnah was written. That's how things happen. They happen because of a ma'aser shahaya. Huh? The Gemara doesn't say. Lo cholitz v'lo choltzin. We also said that a king is not allowed to do any form of chalitza. Any, is that really true? Amar Rabashi. Afilu l'man amar nasi shemachal al kvodo machal. Even if it's true that a nasi can say that, but melech shemachal al kvodo ain't kvodo machal. Shenemar som tasim alecha melech shetei maso alecha. How could Rabbi Yehuda in our Mishnah even suggest that a kohen should do chalitza? Remember, he said if he does it mutav, great, no problem. Rabbi Yehuda said in our Mishnah, no, that should not be. A melech cannot be machal on his kavod, except for one thing: mitzvah shiny. Here we have a mitzvah daraisa. Yibum is a pasuk in Chumash. A Chumash is one of the 613 mitzvahs. We hopefully never fulfill. But the Gemara says that because it's a mitzvah, Rabbi Yehuda holds that even a melech, it's not beneath his cover to do a mitzvah. You want to say it's beneath his cover for certain things, maybe, but not to do a mitzvah. Should we stop here? We really should stop here. So let's stop right here. 10 lines from the top. And Amir Tashem, tomorrow we'll pick up with another blot and a half at the wedding. No shiur here tomorrow night. Going to be at the Goldstein wedding. Mazel tov to Robert and Tammy on Rena's wedding in Hashem tomorrow. Looking forward to celebrating and dancing there. Wishing you all a beautiful night and Mazel tov on 5 full years of Daf Yomi.